Section 34 of the Arabian Nights Entertainments, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nicole. The Arabian Nights Entertainments, Volume 2, by Anonymous. Translated by Dr. Jonathan Scott, 1754 to 1829. The Story of Noor Deen and the Fair Persian, Part 4. The abused king, highly incensed against Noor Deen by this relation, so full of malice and artifice, discovered by his countenance the violence of his anger, and turning to the captain of his guards, who stood near him, "Take 40 of your soldiers," said he, "immediately plunder Noor Deen's house, and having ordered it to be razed to the ground, bring him and his slave to the presence." Before the captain of the guards was gone out of the king's presence, an officer belonging to the court, who overheard the order given, hastened out. His name was Sanjar, and he had been formerly a slave of the vizier Khacan, who had introduced him at court, where by degrees he had raised himself. Sanjar, full of gratitude to his old master and affection for Noor Deen, whom he remembered a child, being no stranger to Saoui's hatred of Khacan's family, could not hear the order without concern. "This action," said he to himself, "may not be altogether so black as Saoui has represented it. He has prejudiced the king against him, who will certainly put him to death, without allowing him time to justify himself." He made so much haste to Noor Deen's house as to get thither soon enough to acquaint him with what had passed at court, and give him time to provide for his own and the fair Persian's safety. He knocked so violently at the door that Noor Deen, who had been a great while without any servant, ran immediately to open it. "My dear lord," said Sanjar, "there is no safety for you in Bussorah. You must lose no time, but depart hence this moment." "How so?" demanded Noor Deen. "What is the reason I must be gone so soon?" "Make haste away, sir," replied Sanjar, "and take your slave with you. In short, Saoui has been just now acquainting the king, after his own way of telling it, all that passed between you and him, and the captain of the guards will be here in an instant with 40 soldiers to seize you and the fair Persian. Take these 40 pieces of gold to assist you in repairing to some place of safety. I would give you more if I had it about me. Excuse my not staying any longer. I leave you with reluctance." Sanjar gave Noor Deen but just time to thank him, and departed. Noor Deen acquainted the fair Persian with the absolute necessity of their going that moment. She only put on her veil. They both stole out of the house, and were fortunate enough not only to get clear of the city, but also safely to arrive at the Euphrates, which was not far off, where they embarked in a vessel that lay ready to weigh anchor. As soon as they were on board, the captain came on deck amongst his passengers. "Children," said he to them, "are you all here? Have any of you any more business to do in the city? Or have you left anything behind you?" They were all there, they answered him, and ready, so that he might sail as soon as he pleased. When Noor Deen came aboard, the first question he asked was whither the vessel was bound, and being told for Baghdad, he rejoiced at it. The captain, having weighed anchor, set sail, and the vessel, with a very favourable wind, lost sight of Bussorah. The captain of the guards came to Noor Deen's house and knocked at the door, but no one answering, he ordered his soldiers to break it open, who immediately obeyed him and rushed in. They searched the house, but neither he nor the fair Persian were to be found. The captain of the guards made them inquire of the neighbours, and he himself asked if they had seen them lately. It was all in vain, for if they had seen him go out of his house, so universally beloved was Noor Deen by the people, that not one of them would have said the least word to his prejudice. While they were rifling the house and levelling it to the ground, he went to acquaint the king with the news. "Look for them," said he, "everywhere, for I am resolved to have them." The captain of the guards made a second search, and the king dismissed the Vizier Saouy with honour. "Go home," said he, "trouble yourself no further to punish Noor ad-Deen. I will revenge your injuries." Without delay the king ordered to be proclaimed throughout the whole city a reward of 1,000 pieces of gold for any person that should apprehend Noor ad-Deen and the fair Persian, also a severe punishment upon those who should conceal them. No tidings, however, could be heard of them, and the Vizier Saouy had only the comfort of seeing the king espouse his quarrel. In the meantime Noor ad-Deen and the fair Persian, after a prosperous voyage, landed safe at Bagdad. As soon as the captain came within sight of that city, pleased that his voyage was at an end, "Rejoice, my children!" cried he to the passengers. "Yonder is that great and wonderful city, where there is a perpetual concourse of people from all parts of the world. There you shall meet with innumerable crowds, and never feel the extremity of cold in winter, nor the excess of heat in summer, but enjoy an eternal spring with all its flowers, and the delicious fruits of autumn." When the vessel came to anchor a little below the city, the passengers went ashore, each to their respective place of abode. Noor ad-Deen gave the captain 5 pieces of gold for his passage, and went ashore also with the fair Persian, but, being a perfect stranger in Bagdad, was at a loss for a lodging. They rambled a considerable time along the gardens that bordered on the Tigris, and keeping close to one of them that was enclosed with a very long wall, at the end of it they turned into a street well paved, where they perceived a magnificent gateway and a fountain near it. The inner door happened to be shut, but the portal was open, in which there was an estrade on each side. "This is a very convenient place for us," said Noor ad-Deen to the fair Persian. "Night comes on apace, and though we have eaten nothing since our landing, I am for passing the night here, and to-morrow we shall have time enough to look for a lodging." "Sir," replied the fair Persian, "you know your wishes are mine. Let us go no further, since you are willing to stay here." Each of them having drunk a draught of water at the fountain, they laid themselves down upon one of the estrades, and after a little chat, being soothed by the agreeable murmur of the water, fell asleep. The garden belonged to the Caliph, and in the middle of it there was a pavilion called the Pavilion of Pictures, because its chief ornaments were pictures after the Persian manner, drawn by the most celebrated painters in Persia, whom the Caliph had sent for on purpose. The stately hall within this pavilion was lighted by 80 arches, and a lustre in each, but these were lighted only when the Caliph came thither to spend the evening. On such occasions they made a glorious illumination, and could be seen at a great distance in the country on that side, and by the great part of the city. The office of keeper of this pleasure house was at this time held by a very aged officer, named Sheikh Ibrahim, whom the Caliph, for some important service, had put into that employment, with strict charge not to let all sorts of people in, but especially to suffer no one either to sit or lie down on the estrades at the outward door, that they might always be clean, and whenever he found anybody there, to punish them severely. Some business had obliged this officer to go abroad, and he was not yet returned. When he came back, there was just daylight enough for him to discern 2 persons asleep upon one of the estrades, with their heads under a piece of linen, to defend them from the gnats. "Very well," said Sheikh Ibrahim to himself, "these people disobey the Caliph's orders, but I will take care to teach them better manners." Upon this he opened the door very softly, and a moment after returned with a cane in his hand, and his sleeve tucked up to the elbow. He was just going to lay on them both with all his might, but, withholding his arm, began to reason with himself after this manner: "Thou wast going, without reflection, to strike these people, who perhaps are strangers, destitute of a lodging, and utterly ignorant of the Caliph's order, so that it would be advisable to know first who they are." Upon this he gently lifted up the linen that covered their heads, and was astonished to see a young man so well shaped, and a young woman so beautiful. He then waked Noor ad-Deen by pulling him softly by the feet. Noor ad-Deen, lifting up his head and seeing an old man with a long white beard standing at his feet, got up, and throwing himself upon his knees, and taking his hand, kissed it. "Good father," said he, "heaven preserve you." "What do you want, my son?" replied Sheikh Ibrahim. "Who are you, and whence come you?" "We are strangers newly arrived," answered Noor ad-Deen, "and would fain tarry here till tomorrow." "This is not a proper place for you," said Sheikh Ibrahim. "Come in with me, and I will find one fitter for you to sleep in than this, and the sight of the garden, which is very fine, will please you when you see it tomorrow by daylight." "Is this garden your own?" asked Noor ad-Deen. "Yes," replied Sheikh Ibrahim, smiling. "It is an inheritance left me by my father. Pray walk in, for I am sure you will not repent seeing it." Noor ad-Deen rose to thank Sheikh Ibrahim for the civility he had strewn, as did afterwards the fair Persian, and they entered the garden. Sheikh Ibrahim locked the door, and going before, led them to a spot from whence, at one view, they might see the disposition, grandeur, and beauty of the whole. Noor ad-Deen had seen very fine gardens, but never any comparable to this. Having satisfied his curiosity as he was walking in one of the walks, he turned about to the officer and asked him his name. As soon as he had told him it was Sheikh Ibrahim, "Sheikh Ibrahim," said he to him, "I must confess this is a charming garden indeed. Heaven send you long to enjoy the pleasures of it. We cannot sufficiently thank you for the favour you have done by showing us a place so well worth seeing. However, it is but just that we should make you some amends for your kindness. Here are 2 pieces of gold. Take them, and get us something to eat, that we may be merry together." At the sight of the 2 pieces of gold, Sheikh Ibrahim, who was a great admirer of that metal, laughed in his sleeve. He took them, and leaving Noor ad-Deen and the fair Persian by themselves, went to provide what was necessary, for he was alone. Said he to himself with great joy, "These are generous people. I should have done very wrong if, through imprudence, I had ill-treated and driven them away. A 10th part of the money will suffice to treat them, and the rest I will keep for my pains." While Sheikh Ibrahim was gone to fetch something for his own supper, as well as for his guests, Noor ad-Deen and the fair Persian walked up and down the garden, till at last they came to the pavilion of pictures. They stood a while to admire its wonderful structure, size, and loftiness, and after taking a full view of it, on every side, went up many steps of fine white marble to the hall door, which they found locked. They were but just returned to the bottom of the steps when Sheikh Ibrahim arrived, loaded with provisions. "Sheikh Ibrahim," said Noor ad-Deen in great surprise, "you did not tell us that this was your garden?" "I did," replied Sheikh Ibrahim, "and do so still." "And does this magnificent pavilion also belong to you?" Sheikh Ibrahim was staggered at this unexpected question. "If," said he to himself, "I should say it is none of mine, they will ask me how I can be master of the garden and not of the pavilion." As he had made them believe the garden was his, he said the same of the pavilion. "My son," said he, "the pavilion is not distinct from the garden, but they both belong to me." "If so," said Noor ad-Deen, "since you invite us to be your guests to-night, do us the favour to shew us the inside of it, for if we may judge by the outward appearance, it must certainly be extraordinarily magnificent." It would have been a great piece of incivility in Sheikh Ibrahim to refuse this favour after what he had already done, Moreover, he considered that the Caliph not having given him notice, according to his usual custom, it was likely he would not be there that night, and therefore resolved to treat his guests and sup with them in the pavilion. He laid the provisions on the first step, while he went to his apartment for the key. He soon returned with a light and opened the door. Noor ad Deen and the fair Persian entered the hall, and were never tired with admiring the beauty and richness of the place. Indeed, without saying anything of the pictures, which were admirably well drawn, the sofas were very noble and costly, and besides lustres suspended from every arc, there was between each silver branch supporting a wax candle. Noor ad Deen could not behold these glorious objects without recollecting his former splendour and sighing. In the meantime Sheikh Ibrahim was getting supper ready, and the cloth being laid upon a sofa, and everything in order, Noor ad Deen, the fair Persian, and he sat down and ate together. When supper was finished, and they had washed their hands, Noor ad Deen opened a lattice, and calling the fair Persian to him, "Come hither," said he, "and with me admire the charming prospect and beauty of the garden by moonlight. Nothing can be more agreeable." She came to him, and they both enjoyed the view, while Sheikh Ibrahim was busy in taking away the cloth. When Sheikh Ibrahim came to his guests again, Noor ad Deen asked him whether he had any liquor to treat them with. "What liquor would you have?" replied Sheikh Ibrahim. "Sherbet? I have the best in the world, but sherbet, you know, my son, is never drunk after supper." "I know that very well," said Noor ad Deen. "It is not sherbet, but another sort of liquor that we ask you for, and I am surprised at your not understanding me." "It is wine that you mean?" said Sheikh Ibrahim. "You guess right," replied Noor ad Deen, "and if you have any, oblige us with a bottle. You know a bottle after supper is a very proper companion to spend the hours with till bedtime." "Heaven defend me from keeping wine in my house," cried Sheikh Ibrahim, "and from ever coming to a place where any is found. A man who, like me, has been a pilgrimage 4 times to Mecca, has renounced wine for ever." "You would do us a singular kindness," said Noor ad Deen, "in getting a little for our own drinking, and if it be not too much trouble, I will put you in a way how you may do it, without going into a vinter's shop, or so much as laying your hand upon the vessel that contains it." "Upon that condition I will do it," replied Sheikh Ibrahim, "only let me know what I am to do." "Why then," said Noor ad Deen, "we just now saw an ass tied at the entrance of your garden, which certainly must be yours, and which you may make use of in this extremity. Here are 2 pieces of gold more. Take them and lead your ass with the panniers to the next vinters. You may stand at as great a distance as you please. Do but give something to the first person that comes by, and desire him to go with your ass and procure 2 pitchers of wine. Put one in one pannier, in another, which he must pay for out of the money you give him, and so let him bring the ass back to you. You will have nothing to do but to drive the beast hither before you. We will take the wine out of the panniers. By this means you will do nothing that will give you any scruple." The 2 last pieces of gold that Sheikh Ibrahim was going to receive wrought wonderfully upon his mind. "Ah, my son," cried he, "you have an excellent contrivance, and had it not been for your invention, I should never have thought of this way of getting you some wine without any scruple of conscience." Away he went to execute the orders, which he did in a little time, and upon his return, Noor ad Deen, taking the pitchers out of the panniers, carried them into the hall. Sheikh Ibrahim, having led the ass to the place from whence he took him, came back again. "Sheikh Ibrahim," said Noor ad Deen, "we cannot enough thank you for the trouble we have already given you, but we want something yet." "What is that?" replied Sheikh. "What more service can I do you?" "We have no cups to drink out of," said Noor ad Deen, "and a little fruit, if you had any, would be very acceptable." "Do but say what you have a mind to," replied Sheikh Ibrahim, "and you shall have everything to your heart's content." Down went Sheikh Ibrahim, and in a short time spread a carpet for them with beautiful porcelain dishes full of all sorts of delicious fruits, besides gold and silver cups to drink out of, and, having asked them if they wanted anything else, he withdrew, though they pressed him earnestly to stay. Noor ad Deen and the fair Persian sat down again and drank each cup. They were pleased with the wine, which was excellent. "Well, my dear," said Noor ad Deen to the fair Persian, "are we not the most fortunate persons in the world, after so many dangers, to meet with so charming and agreeable a place? Let us be merry and think no more on the hardships of our voyage. Can my happiness be greater in this world than to have you on one side of me and my glass on the other?" They drank freely and diverted themselves with agreeable conversation, each singing a song. Both having very fine voices, but especially the fair Persian, their singing attracted Sheikh Ibrahim, who had stood hearkening a great while on the steps without discovering himself. He could contain himself no longer, but thrusting his head in at the door, "Courage, sir," said he to Noor ad Deen, whom he took to be quite drunk. "I am glad to see you so pleased." "Ah, Sheikh Ibrahim," cried Noor ad Deen, turning to him, "you are a glorious man, and we are extremely obliged to you. We dare not ask you to drink a cup, but walk in, come, sit down, and let us have the honour at least of your company." Go on," said Sheikh Ibrahim. "The pleasure of hearing your songs is sufficient for me." Upon this he immediately retired. The fair Persian, perceiving Sheikh Ibrahim through one of the windows standing upon the steps, told Noor ad Deen of it. "Sir," said she, "you see what an aversion he has for wine, yet I question not in the least to make him drink, if you will do as I would have you." Noor ad Deen asked her what it was. "Do but say the word," replied he, "and I am ready to do what you please. Prevail with him then only to come in and bear us company. Some time after fill up a bumper, and give it him. If he refuses, drink it yourself. Pretend to be asleep, and leave the rest to me." Noor ad Deen understood the fair Persian's design, and called to Sheikh Ibrahim, who came again to the door. "Sheikh Ibrahim," said he, "we are your guests. You have entertained us in the most obliging manner, and will now refuse our solicitations to honour us with your company? We do not ask you to drink, but only the favour of seeing you." Sheikh Ibrahim, being at last prevailed upon, came into the hall and sat down on the edge of a sofa nearest to the door. "You do not sit well there," said Noor ad Deen, "and we cannot have the honour of seeing you. Pray come nearer and sit you down by the lady. She will like it much." "I will obey you," replied Sheikh Ibrahim, so coming forward, simpering, to think he should be seated near so beautiful a creature, he placed himself at some distance from the fair Persian. Noor ad Deen desired a song of her, in return for the honour Sheikh Ibrahim had done them, and she sung one that charmed him. Section 34. Recording by Nicole.